everybody. Welcome to Elliot's Iliad, I think episode 6? I don't know what I'm on. Anyways, today I'm joined by the wonderful Connor. He's been
What's up?
here several times before, and the legendary Mr. Smith,
What's up, Elliot? What's up, Connor?
my English teacher from I think 3 years ago, who I've kept in contact with because he's awesome.
Thank you. Absolutely. Excited to be here.
Alright, let's begin.
So this is Mr. Smith's life advice to be amazing.
Oh,
Roughly.
no pressure. Is that how it works? It's not like a Q&A. I just go, and then when I'm out of advice,
If you've got things that are on your mind, you
We just
Just-
we just get into it, and then once
All
we
right.
start
Yeah.
talking, we just get with it. It's not really like an interview.
Got it. Why don't you give me some like piece of life, and then I
Okay.
can, because there's life in general. I mean, that's pretty broad. So try to give me like a framework, and I can go from there.
All right.
It doesn't have to be serious. It can be silly.
For starters, um, let's like we could start with like the whole COVID life thing because that's been a little rough for me recently, especially. It's just kind of like easing into things like classes or kind of just anything really. Like what are we even doing? Because I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So I guess my priority would be to not get anyone else sick.
Of course.
I'm pretty confident that I'm a healthy person. I stay pretty active, but I would never want to be the reason that someone I know or someone I don't know or a family member or friend gets sick because they're not, their physiology isn't set up like mine. So I guess in terms of a piece of advice, it would just be, when you're around people indoors, the guidance is to wear a mask or you wear a mask. Other than that, I think staying active, getting outside, living a healthy lifestyle helps, across a lot of different levels of life, but certainly helps with this. A lot of people were, kind of cooped up in their house for a while. And, if you can get outside, go to a park, get some sun, stretch your legs a little, that's all really good.
Right.
What do you have to say to the people during COVID with mental health struggles?
Oh, pretty much everybody.
Well, I think if you're experiencing mental health struggles, you should certainly seek the guidance of a professional if you have that level of health care available to you. If you don't, there are certainly free services available. There are numbers you can call, but that's the most important thing to help address those is seeking the help of a mental health professional. Um, I think there's little things everyone can do. Like we're not talking about someone with mental illness, but someone who's just kind of struggling and going through a difficult time because of some of the restrictions that we've had. Something my wife and I have done this year is every week we write down something good that happened that week and we fold it up on this little piece of paper and then we put it in a jar and we don't know what the other person wrote. And then I guess on New Year's Eve or maybe New Year's Day of 2022, we'll look through all those positive things and we'll have, a lot of really good memories. So for us, I think we're in a pretty good mental health spot. We're really delaying the gratification of that. But if you're someone who's struggling to see the good parts of life, I would say listing one thing every day. And then at the end of the week, you go through the list. Because when we start to feel sad or we start to get angry, and everybody deals with the situation differently. Some people carry around a lot of anger. Other people carry it, kind of put it on them and carry around a lot of sadness. having a list like these are the good things that happened to me this week, and that's, I think, really helpful to remind yourself that there are good things happening, even though they're not at the front of our mind all the time. So that's a really easy thing you can do. If you have a phone, you can just keep it as a note in your phone, and then you could keep that list going and end up with hundreds of good things that happen to you throughout the year. And then when you're having a tough day, you go back through the list and you remember it, and just try to keep your positive mental attitude kind of at the front of things.
It's actually a really good idea.
There you go. Podcast complete.
I start doing that myself.
You should.
Yeah.
You definitely should. I mean, I think even if somebody watching this isn't currently experiencing some negative feelings, having the bank of positive memories is helpful for when you do start to feel them. You know, you have a couple low days in a row, and then you have this list of positive things you made that can really pick you up. So yeah, that's a really easy, there's no cost involved. Everyone can do that and try to, take care of their mental health. So that, I mean, it's not going to fix everything. It's certainly not a panacea, but it's an easy thing to do that's helpful.
It's a wonderful idea.
There you go. Topic 1.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, can I ask you about topic number 2, Mr. Smith?
Sure.
So you've heard before there's like this triad of things when you're like an adult. It's work, social life, and like physical fitness. And some people say because you're so busy you can only pick 2.
I've only seen that in relation to college, where it's sleep, partying, and classes, and it says pick 2.
Okay.
I've not seen that for adult life. And you're saying it's work,
working, balancing work, like a social life, or free time, and physical fitness. And some people have trouble balancing those things.
Okay. I would suggest to someone who's having trouble balancing those things that they need to make a priority list and figure out what it is they're prioritizing. Because anyone's actual life is way longer than 3 things. Like that is kind of odd. The banging on the head.
Yeah,
you warned me, but it still caught me off guard. So if I make a priority list, I think first would be relationship with friends and family, then work, because work affords me the money to do a lot of the things I like to do, then physical fitness, and then I don't know how nuanced the list is going to get. Like for me, physical fitness, part of that is my dietary habits, but maybe for other people it's not. So I don't know. I think making the priority list would be the first step, and then a lot of people don't recognize how much time they have. The days are long.
Yeah.
Certainly folks who have children have less time.
Yeah.
I don't know that world. So best of luck, folks. I don't know how many people watching Elliot's podcast. Elliot's Iliad. Is it Odyssey or Iliad?
Iliad.
Yeah. Our experience, our parents. But
well, maybe they have like a younger sibling they have to watch on a frequent basis. But
yeah, you can't do push-ups together. I don't know. It feels like some people really overcomplicate their life. Like I would be curious if somebody's saying like, I can't balance a social life, physical fitness, and work. Like how many hours a week are you working? Are you working 40 hours a week? Are you working 80 hours a week? If you're working 80 hours a week, of course there's no work-life balance. Like you're in a financial situation where you apparently have to work 80 hours a week. So those other things are going to fall to the side. When I was young, 22, I was working third shift at Wawa. So that's 11 to 6:30 for me. And then driving to Wissahickon High School and substitute teaching. and then coaching at Arcadia University from 4 to 6. So I was literally working from 11 p.m. to 6 o'clock the next day. Well, of course I didn't have time for a social life. Of course my physical fitness, went right in the trash can. I did that for maybe 2 or 3 months. And then I had built up enough capital that I didn't need to do that anymore. But if in that moment I was putting this expectation on myself that I was also supposed to have a social life, that would not be reasonable. And then I think there's people who work 30 hours a week and like, I don't have enough time. Well, they have plenty of time. I think most phones at this point can tell you how much time you spend on each app. If you look at that and you're into the double digits a week on a single app, well, that could have been time that you met a friend for coffee. That could have been time you were at the gym or out for a walk or a run. So it maybe for some people who aren't working an exorbitant number of hours per week, it's literally tracking what they do with their time. If you wake up and the first hour of your day is just scrolling through Instagram, you've skipped an opportunity to get a workout in. And you chose to do that. Like, you didn't have to do that. The way like maybe you wake up and you have to go to work right away. So I think a lot of people have time they don't realize. If you're watching 10 hours of TV a week, okay, but if you're watching 30 hours of TV a week, you have time. You have time to socialize. You have time to get a workout in. Or for a lot of folks, it's video games. They're playing 20 hours of video games a week and saying they don't have time. Now, if video games are part of their social life, well, then they're balancing that. They do have a social life. It's through video games. Now, if they're dissatisfied with that social life, well, then they need to reconsider their priorities. Do I really like hanging out with my friends and playing Call of Duty or Minecraft or whatever? Or would I rather cut that time in half and go see people in the real world? But having the priority list allows them to do that. How much joy or how much net happiness am I getting out of each activity? So step 1, make the priority list. Step 2, take 2 weeks, write down all the stuff you do, and then you'll be mindful of what you're doing in relation to your priority list. And then maybe the priority list starts to change. You're like, well, I really like World of Warcraft, but I don't like it so much that I want to do it 20 hours a week. I mean, 20 hours a week is a part-time job.
Yeah.
So if you're engaging in a behavior or activity that you don't really love and isn't giving you access to joy or happiness or well-being, you could probably taper that down some. Is that a fair answer?
Oh yeah. And I feel like I kind of related to when you said like the whole social aspect about video games or in person, because I've kind of been for a while now just kind of splitting it up, finding that perfect golden ratio about, because like I'll get on and like I'm a builder, so I'll build with my internet friends, and then the other half of the time just go out with other friends. And it's all about balancing it, or if like plans come up, then go with whichever one you want. The like work and then each aspect of the social like pyramid, because family is another like part of that pyramid for me. I try to balance that out as well, and it gets a little tricky because it's just like you gotta like just find the ratio, like I said.
Yeah.
And I don't know, work
I think
around with everyone's schedules and stuff.
Yeah, and you can find ways to combine those things. Like if you want to spend time with your family, but you also want to do something physical, you go for a walk in the park. Then you're spending time with your family and you're having a shared experience and you're talking and you're not just looking at a screen and you're doing something physical.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that everybody's going to show up to their gym and get a workout in with their mom? No, but you can find ways to find like a happy medium so that everybody feels like, hey, I'm really glad we had the chance to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a mindfulness that a lot of people lack, and that a lot of apps and streaming services and video games are designed to keep you from thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they certainly don't want you thinking, maybe I should turn this off and go do something physical. Like, their job is to keep you watching, keep you engaged, not make you think, well, that's probably enough of this show.
Yeah.
I know too, for the physical fitness aspect of it. This is gonna sound obvious, but like learning how to exercise efficiently is like important, because I know a lot of people who are new to it think they have to go work out for like, you know, 2 hours a day. Because I have friends who would work out for, like, when in their first few months they started, they would work out for like 2 hours a day, like 5 or 6 days a week. So that's 10 to 12 hours of exercise in a week.
Yeah.
Like you could do like 45 minutes to an hour, like you know 5 days a week, and that's like plenty.
Well, I guess it all depends on what your goals are too.
Yeah, that's true.
Certainly
But
different strength sports require different amounts of time. But if somebody who's actively involved in a strength sport, that's the top of their priority list.
yeah.
Everything is based around their workout and their diet.
Mhm.
So if it's 2 hours a day, they're very happy that it's 2 hours a day, because they're deriving well-being, joy, happiness, whatever you want to call it, from those 2 hours.
Mhm.
Another thing you could do, which is kind of what I do, is like mix the physical activity aspect like with the social aspect. Because whenever I like go somewhere, even if I'm not going somewhere, I'll just bike around or roller skate everywhere, which is it's pretty good workout if you go long distances.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Chop wood.
chop wood. That too.
Well, chopping wood is a tremendous workout. I mean,
Mhm.
that is very physically taxing.
Yeah, Elliot's family does that. Like, well, your dad does it almost every day, does he not?
That is not true.
How often does he cut wood? Because he has a big pile in your yard just sitting there, like 24/7.
I chop the wood because I am the one who uses it the most, but
Oh, okay.
it's
What do you
not.
do? What are you doing with all this wood?
I have fires every now and then with just a bunch of friends, but I need
There
to,
you
yeah, gotta get back into that because we ran out of firewood. Regardless, it is a good workout.
Yeah, definitely. All right, is that topic 2 down?
I
Mhm.
think so. That was a good one.
Do you have anything on your mind, Elliot?
I could think of a few things. Give me a minute.
Okay. Mr. Smith,
Yeah.
what are your like? Because you obviously, I guess, took out a loan for school, right? College?
No.
No. Okay. Well, how did you like afford your tuition then?
Oh, that's what it was.
They really wanted me to go there, and they covered it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you don't have any experience with like paying back loans then or anything? Well, student loans, I mean.
I do. My first wife had a few student loans that we paid
Okay.
off, and my wife has a student loan, and I've certainly helped friends navigate like that financial side of their life, and just kind of understand how to budget and pay things off.
Okay. Is there anything like you have on your mind about that, like, budget? You said budgeting, like, because a lot
Yeah.
of people have problems with money.
Yeah, they do. They're terrible at it. I think this is how I do it, and I would say I came from a background where I did not have a lot of money, and so I am a very good saver. I am not a good investor. Like, I'm very risk averse.
Okay.
So when people are like getting into crypto or making investments, because I came from a background that I didn't have a lot of money, I'm like very hesitant to put up 10 G's and see what happens. Like I'd rather just kind of hold on to it and
know it's going to be there.
know it's going to be there. So I don't have a lot of advice in terms of like growing wealth, but I am very
good at keeping it.
Yeah, accumulating it at a slow pace, and saving I am solidly built for. So I think the first thing you want to do is know how much money you have coming in. And some jobs that's easier to know than others. Obviously, if you're a salaried employee, you know how much money's coming in. If you're an hourly employee with a relatively set schedule, you know how much money is coming in. If you're a shift worker at a restaurant, you really don't know, because it's going to depend on how many people show up on a Friday and who else is working and a lot of different factors. So that can be harder. But step one, start with a base amount. So if you're a young person who's working part-time, you might be making, somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 a year. That seems like not unreasonable, especially now with places like Target and Walmart paying you $15 to $18. You could potentially make that much money. So like that's your base amount. The first thing I would take out of that amount is what I want to save. Before I even pay bills, how much do I want to save? And everybody's a little different. Some would say like at the age of 20, you should be saving 15%, 12%, 20%, but you figure out that amount. How much do I want to save? Subtract that from your total. Now it's time to pay my bills. Okay, I have $100 for my phone. I have $100 for whatever. And then what do I have left to spend on socializing, going out and having fun? You look at those, like you look at that list, and then you look at that priority list we talked about earlier. And that maybe informs like, oh, I need to work more, or I need to work a second job, or I'm working a good amount, but if I could talk my boss into giving me a raise, that would really set me up for being successful. And so like even now at 40, I have a list of what I'm going to save per month, all my expenses, and then an amount of money that I'm allowed to spend every month on whatever I want. And I don't have to spend that amount. And if I don't, I just funnel that money into the next month, or maybe savings or targeted savings. Like there's savings like I'm never going to touch this money. And then there's targeted savings where you're like, I'm saving for a car, I'm saving for a house, whatever. I mean, I use that now because it gives me the clearest picture of my financial situation. And I'm never in a position where I have to think, can I afford that? I know before a new item comes into my field of vision if I can afford it or not, because I have that money set aside for whatever might come up. Does that make sense? And it's literally as simple as just going into Google Docs and making a table and taking 45 minutes to an hour to figure it out, and then having the self-discipline to actually stick to it. I think a lot of times you'll see this in memes from young millennials and Gen Z folks, and it'll say something like the boomer attitude is, well, if you didn't buy that $5 coffee every day, you could afford a house. And I think that's there is some truth to that. Certainly, many people's financial ills are not because they're buying a $5 coffee every day. But if you are buying a $5 coffee every day, you're spending $150 a month on coffee. Okay, well, if you want to buy a nice hat, you don't drink coffee that month, and then you own your hat. But if you try to buy the hat and the coffee, things aren't going to work out well, at 22 years old. It's just not how it goes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I need to. I feel like granted, I don't make like racks as a part time at BJ's, but I definitely have some bad spending habits.
Yeah. And it's so easy to spend money.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's
Capitalism.
easy. Well, I mean, we've had capitalism for quite a while, but the ease that you can spend money
Mm-hmm.
and how spending money becomes very like quick, like new spending habits, and what I would say are negative spending habits become very quickly adopted in society. I've never done like a DoorDash. I would never do that ever. Like it just seems like a giant waste of money to me. If driving to pick up, we eat Chinese food once a week. If driving to pick up the Chinese food is so taxing that I'm willing to pay someone, not someone, a giant billion-dollar company, $10 to $15 to deliver it to me, I personally don't want the Chinese food that much. It's a 10-minute round trip. And I get to see the place, make sure that there's not just, dirt everywhere. At this point, we know the woman behind the counter. We have cool social interactions with her. Her kids are in the restaurant. We talk to them. Like it's more than just, I'm going to consume this food as soon as it arrives. And I'm apparently saving $10 to $15. So, but at this point, DoorDash or Uber Eats just instantly became the cultural norm. And I think more young people would opt into that than they would think about it for a second and say, like, what am I really buying? Sometimes the fees for those services cost more than the actual item that they're buying.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
I can't imagine a world like where that makes sense to me. Like that's just a level of convenience that I'd rather not have, because I see it as so fiscally, I'm going to say it's fiscally irresponsible. Yeah, I don't see a way that it's not fiscally irresponsible. Even if you have tons of money, even if you're like, watching a $10 bill burn would be more entertaining to me than paying a giant billionaire company $10 to deliver, a monster from Wawa. It just doesn't make any sense.
I mean,
But again,
yeah,
it's very, very socially acceptable. And that switch was fast because it's convenient. People like convenience.
for sure. I have a lot of friends that do it just because they don't feel like going to get it.
Yeah. I think people have really mistaken comfort for well-being. And those are very, very different things. Like comfort is, I don't want to move. I'm comfortable.
Right.
I'm happy where I am. Well-being to me is constant growth. And people mistake comfort, the comfort of the next TV show starting, or the next round of a video game starting, or the food being delivered, that lack of movement, they mistake that for well-being. And I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen Wall-E?
Yes. Oh, yep.
I mean, I
Perfect
watched that.
example.
I watched that a long time ago. Obviously, I don't even know how old it is. I didn't see it when it came out, but I saw it at some point. Maybe, I don't know, 2007, something like that. And I was just like, ugh, like those people are, and they're clearly portrayed to be like they think they're happy, but they're really just comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
They're slovenly and everything's taken care of, and they got the screen and the food, it's just there. Well, yeah, a lot of people actually live that way, but they're not happy. They don't. I can promise you, somebody living like that does not have a list of good things that happened in the last year. Because what are they going to write? Like, finished off The Office a third time, you know?
Yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm.
That movie's scarily accurate in some ways.
Yeah. It's just not for me. But I'm also saying that with the advantage of not having those things as a young person. You know, like if we think about a 5-year-old today, they're just seeing all that as part of who they are. Like
Right.
their
They're born
ability
into
to be
screens.
right, their ability to be skeptical about why they're doing it is limited because they're just seeing it, and they need someone to teach them to be skeptical of the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're comfortable, you're much less likely to express skepticism of the status quo because you're comfortable.
Right. I see it with my little cousins all the time. But I guess that's the world we live in now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the world a lot of people choose to live in, but you can choose to live without it. And it's really not that hard. Like, I don't watch more than one episode of a television show at a time. Like, I would never sit and binge a show. I just can't imagine it would be worth it because I want to digest the show. I want to think about the show. And if when I go to think about the show, there's not much to think about, well, then I know I don't need to watch another episode of it. That's the qualifier is, well, there wasn't a whole lot there. Well, why would I watch it? No, some shows you give us a second episode to, like maybe it gets better. But there are people who they're taking in that second episode before they thought about the first episode, and then they're on episode 10, and they're like, yeah, this is what I've been watching. I can't wait to find something new.
Yeah.
Well, you could have found something new after episode 1. To that end, I did watch, not in preparation for this, but maybe to some extent, I did watch the first episode of Rick and Morty on Sunday. A show that many people have recommended to me. And yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I figured. It's not much of a Mr. Smith show, at least I don't think, because...
Yeah. I wanted it to be, because a lot of my friends really like it, but...
There's not a whole lot of substance.
It's
just kind of like one of those shows that it's funny, fun to watch with your friends, but...
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever, like, hung out with friends and watched TV.
Really? You've never, like, binged something with them? Or watched a movie?
No. I mean, go to the movies, but I've never had people over my house and then just turned on the TV. I don't think so.
I guess
because if you're at my house, we're going to do something to spend time together, not totally disconnect from each other and sit in silence as we watch a show.
That's valid. I guess that's just... I mean, it's normalized now because, I mean, I'll have friends over and we'll watch a movie or show and we'll commentate through it the whole time.
I could see value in that.
Like giving opinions, whatnot.
See, if I'm watching something, though, I don't want people talking because I'm trying to take it in.
That's fair.
So I guess if it's something that everybody's watched and then, like, we're watching it together to, like, riff on it and, like, I could see value in that. I could see how it could be fun.
Right.
But no, my wife and I will watch a movie occasionally. But we're more like, we'll watch an episode of something that's like 20, 30 minutes. And then sometimes, depending on our schedules, we'll have another show that's like 45 minutes to an hour. We started Freaks and Geeks, which is a very highly acclaimed show. That has a lot of really successful people in it before they were successful people. It's on Hulu. I haven't found it to be very good. I think we've watched 3 episodes, but I think it was overhyped. But it's Judd Apatow, who's pretty famous. I would imagine that the name you're familiar with. He's the executive producer. And then James Franco, Seth Rogen, the guy from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, whose name I always forget. They're all in the show, and they're young, and obviously they all grew up to have successful careers. And it's set in the 80s, but it's high school, and they're kind of finding their way in the world, and it's fine. But I had high hopes, and it's just kind of like every now and then I just look at my wife like, what are we doing? 20 more minutes of this?
Yep. Interesting. Never heard of it.
I did watch, you both recommended a cartoon show to me, Invincible.
Yep.
Yes.
I did watch that.
I've recently
How
started that.
How many episodes in are you, Mr. Smith?
Oh, I finished.
I
You're
haven't
finished?
finished yet because I'm watching it with my parents. But yeah, it's an interesting one to choose to watch with your parents. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, hey, this is supposed to be really good. I want to watch it, so we did. But yeah, what I have watched, I think I'm on episode 5, but it is pretty good.
I mean, how many episodes are there? 9?
There's 8.
8
in the first
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I started the last day we talked,
Mm-hmm.
and they're 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe.
What'd you think of the show?
It was good.
Good. Okay, that's good.
It was fun. I think, there's always these like massive leaps you have to make any sense out of it. And some of the leaps are pretty big, but for the most part, I thought it was well done. There were some surprises in there, things that were like outside the norm of what you expect from like a superhero show. And yeah.
Wait, like what? Without spoiling it for Elliot, like what do you mean by out of the norm for a superhero show?
I think how and this isn't a spoiler because it's the first couple episodes, like how the superheroes interact with society and how they interact with each other. That there's like rival factions of superheroes.
Oh yeah.
That kind of had like a flavor of like The Boys. And then how society looked at the superheroes, I thought it wasn't just like staring straight up at the statue of Superman, the way, comics were for the first 60 years they existed or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good.
So
You think you'll watch the second season?
Oh yeah, I'll watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta ask, of course, as tradition, Mr. Robot.
No, man, I don't know how to better tell you I'm not going to watch this. It's not going to happen. You already told me that like there are whole seasons that aren't very good.
I have?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said after the first season or whatever, the show starts to suck or something like that.
I don't remember saying that.
Yeah.
Oh,
You kind of made the decision for me.
alright.
Isn't it also on a platform that you don't have?
That I don't know.
It's on Amazon.
No, I have that. I have
Oh.
that.
Okay, what about Breaking Bad? Have you ever watched that?
Watched the last episode as a joke.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad show or anything. It
Got
just,
it.
by the time I could have started watching it, there were already so many episodes that I had no interest.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, every top 5 list of shows of all time, it's on there. So I would imagine it's really, really good television, but just no interest because the time investment would be so
Mm-hmm. That's
high.
fair.
But I'm sure it's very good.
There's a lot to it. I started watching it with my brother and friend like half a year ago at this point, and we're only on like season 4 out of 5.
But yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was I don't know where that started. It started with financial advice.
Yeah.
I'll close the loop on that and say you definitely want to know what you're paying for your streaming services. That's a place where a lot of young people bleed money because they're signed up for Spotify, they're signed up for Hulu, they're signed up for Showtime, they're signed up for HBO. It's like, do you actually need to spend all that money on all those services? And maybe you do. Like maybe you look at a priority list and you're like, you know what? This is what I'm prioritizing, entertainment. And maybe you look at the priority list and you're like, you know what? I don't need to spend $10 a month on HBO or $15 a month on Netflix. I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. That is a big one because odds are it's like the Infinity Stones. If you have one, you're gonna want the rest.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, at least for a lot of my friends, it's like, oh, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Spotify, just everything.
Oh, I meant in relation to the Infinity Stones. Like, other than Thanos, is there anyone that tried to actually get them all together? It seemed like many people were more than happy to just have the one.
I guess you're right. Then they're like Thanos in that sense.
I will say the What If show. The first episode was okay, but the second episode of What If, really strong. I was pleasantly surprised by how good that was.
What is that on?
Disney Plus.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was. What if T'Challa had become Star Lord?
Oh, I have seen that. I haven't watched it, but I've seen things of it.
It did. I thought it did a really nice job of like really expanding out all the permutations of a universe where that happens, which was fun.
Yeah, interesting.
And they're long too. They're not like 20 minutes.
It's animated, right?
Yeah, animated. Yeah, they're saving a ton of money not having all those. They have some of the same voice actors, but they're saving a ton of money not having all the to shoot all those scenes.
Right.
All right, what else? Let's do it.
Connor, anything?
I asked a couple of the last few questions, so I'll let you ask.
I know.
Some of your.
I know earlier. We said something about Bitcoin real quick. I just wanted to say that is getting massive.
Oh, big crypto, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I was like every now and then I'll see literally like in a Bitcoin ATM,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even know what that is.
I know Elon Musk said you're going to be able to buy the Tesla cars with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think he might have walked that back.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Obviously, he has a pretty firm track record of being all over the place.
Yeah.
And he may have walked that back.
Well, I remember with Bitcoin, the value approached, it was up to like $60,000. So he Hail Married $1 billion into it, and then it went back down to like $12,000 from 60,000, which is like a huge percent loss.
Yeah.
And it's back up now to I think like 48 or 49, but it's still not up to 60 when he bought Iliad or when he announced he bought $1 billion worth of it. So he still like lost money,
But I mean, he has $1 billion to play with, where it can just sit there, and in the next 5 years, it could potentially reach $100,000. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where, as interesting as it is to have a deregulated currency,
Mm-hmm.
now that billionaires are involved and eccentric billionaires like him are involved, where he can take something like Dogecoin and just like inflate its value
Mm-hmm.
and grow his own wealth, kind of like it for fun or like as a game.
Yeah, it's like a game. I was just gonna say.
That's a little weird, because I'm sure all of us have people in our lives who tried to get in on it, put more money into it than they should have, and ended up with next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's just tweeting as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that the Dogecoin was created as a meme by somebody who, does like web development or something. And they said they don't even know why people bother with it because they just created it as a joke.
Yeah. And, I think Elon Musk just thought that the joke was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And, now people have actual meaningful amounts of money in their life tied up in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I think NFTs are also something that.
Oh, yep, those are popping off too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the crest of that wave was maybe in like May, and since then it's kind of come back down.
Mm-hmm.
But just the idea that you're like owning a digital version of something
Right.
you don't physically own. I don't know. I think that's where my age kind of comes in.
The new age people, it's like, I don't know. It's like they compare it to like just normal art.
I get that when it's an actual piece of digital art. Like that makes sense to me. And I know that there's some setups where like every time it's sold, a percentage of the sale goes back to the original artist.
Right.
I'm all about that. Like I think
that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's genius. And what should happen.
It's when it comes to like the pixelated avatars that it's like.
Yeah. Or I don't know if you, I don't get the sense you guys are like big professional sports fans, but NBA Top Shot is an NFT program where you have like a virtual wallet of NBA highlights. So like you could go on YouTube and watch those highlights right now for free. Mm-hmm. But if they're in your Top Shot wallet, digital virtual wallet, you might have spent $4,000 on one of them. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, and I think the most expensive Top Shot highlight was $400,000 because there's like one copy of it on that platform, but it's a highlight that everyone's seen and can see for free.
Yeah, I know there was this talk about like viral videos on when YouTube first came out. Mm-hmm. They did that with one, and they're considering doing it with another. Have you ever seen the one where this kid's like with his brother who's like maybe a year old and he's biting his finger?
Yeah, Charlie bit my finger.
Yeah, they sold that as an NFT for like $75,000, but multiple people have like just re-uploaded the video on their own YouTube channel, so I can just go and watch it.
Right.
And they're talking about doing that with the I don't know if you've heard of it, the Chocolate Rain music video.
Oh yeah. And then I don't know what happens to shows like Talk Soup or Daniel Tosh's show, where like they made a living showing the viral videos. Do they then have to pull those episodes?
Good question.
I don't know how that works, you know? Mm-hmm. It's a complicated NFTs, crypto. Certainly a lot of people are making money. As always, when a lot of people are making money, there's usually even more people losing money and not telling you that it's happening. And that's unfortunate.
Well, did you follow when a bunch of online folks inflated the value of GameStop?
Yeah, I had some friends that made out quite well doing that.
Because there were people on Reddit who talked about how they Hail Married their, money they were going to use to pay their student loans or their savings. Like some guy said he put $10,000 of his savings into GameStop, and that was right when certain platforms started to restrict trading and the SEC started to look into it, and he lost like all of what he put into it.
And that's where
it's his fault.
Well, it's not though.
He took out his aggressiveness at the people who started the hype.
Well, that seems misplaced, because what was happening was not. You wouldn't expect more people to be in the building than me on a day where we don't have to be here, but apparently there's quite a few people here. What those people were doing was not illegal. Mm-hmm. And it would only serve to make money for more everyday people and potentially, bankrupt massive hedge funds. Mm-hmm. But those hedge funds control the regulatory system that never exercises any control against them. And so they shut it down. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's hard not to be skeptical of that whole process. Mm-hmm. People publicly agreeing to buy into a stock is totally legal. Mm-hmm. I don't know what is going on out there. It sounds like a bunch of kids are in the building, which seems really weird.
Huh. Interesting.
Are you sure it's not like an orientation or?
I don't know. I'm not sure about what it is at all. I'm going to close my door though, because I feel like the noise is going to start to trickle in.
All right. Fair enough. Pumpkin season.
All right. Hopefully that helps some. Sorry about that.
No, you're all right.
All good.
All right. So a new topic we were looking for, Elliot.
Yes. I wanted to touch on like the whole college scene, because like with a lot, like I recently, everybody's going back who hasn't previously, like all my friends and everything, and Mopco's doing in-person stuff now. Um, Granted, it's still kind of all over the place, just a little confusing, but it's like, I don't know, prior to going in person, like all the online stuff, it hasn't seemed worth it. So I guess it's gonna be interesting to see how it works out.
Is Mako planning on fully reopening this fall?
I don't
Or
know. I don't think fully,
okay.
but like as much as they can.
Hmm.
There wasn't really a question in there, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're
No,
looking
I
for.
guess not. I don't know. I guess like what's your opinion on it? Because it seems like a lot of places don't really know what they're doing still.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the first question. We have to do what experts. I don't know if it's consensus, but what most experts are suggesting in terms of keeping people healthy and safe. And if that's in person, great. If it's not, well, then we'll have to figure it out. At least we have some background in doing that.
Right.
Um, Certainly, it seems like every college program at this point integrates some level of online into it.
Hmm.
And so,
Right. Especially with like, I guess it's gonna be interesting to see with like all the like the new Delta variant and that whole new wave coming in.
yeah.
It's gonna be a little strange.
But I would say even independent of COVID, college is odd because usually when you pay for something, you expect that thing to take care of you. And college is the opposite. You're paying for the opportunity to try your best at something.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And that's what I think a lot of young people don't necessarily realize. That you're not paying for a degree, you're paying for an opportunity to advance your knowledge, earn a certificate, whatever, whether it's in college or a trade program or whatever. So I think sometimes, especially when young people are paying for it out of their own pocket, or they'll have to pay back the loan, they they end up um, thinking, well, I paid, so I don't have to work that hard, or they don't try their best. And you get a lot of excuses. Oh, my schedule's not great this year. I have to get up early, or this professor didn't do this. And it's just like you're paying for the opportunity for you to try your best. Well, you should probably do that then and not worry about the things you can't control. Like, sometimes your schedule, you can't control it. Like, if that's when they offer the class, that's when the class is. You make the best of it. If the professor's not great, you make the best of it. And I think people are really prone to like excuse making
Yeah, that's a problem
because
that
they're
I have.
paying so much.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean that there aren't some professors that are like, just straight trash. But I think those are much fewer. And it's much easier to for a young person to think, well, this content's hard. It must be the professor's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, the content's hard. It's why it's college. You're supposed to work really hard. And that's uncomfortable. And that kind of loops back into the comfort conversation.
Right. That's one of the issues I had, especially with all the online stuff, because it was really hit or miss. Um, but I guess that's, I don't know, like finding motivation, especially when the class is like a miss. Like it's all just, I don't know, because I'm so used to, like everyone's just used to in person, and
Yeah.
going immediately to all online. It's just like, what the heck?
Yeah, it was certainly
I think that was the downfall for a lot of people.
yeah, and then all the other added complications
Yep.
that COVID brought with the mental health and the physical and all that stuff, inability to see your friends and all that.
For sure.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
So let's say you go to college and you get a degree and you do a job like pertaining to that degree.
Yeah.
Is the actual work you'll do at your job harder than going through coursework at college, or the other way around?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a hard question for me to answer because I'm a teacher. And
I
so,
only ask because for me specifically with engineering, I've
yeah.
heard on like forums, like practicing engineers have said that their coursework in college is significantly more difficult than their actual job once they get it.
Yeah.
So
I
I wanted
wouldn't,
to know if you felt that way or.
I mean, teaching is just a totally separate entity, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but I will share an anecdote with you. I was up in Boston over the summer, and we've been doing a fair amount of bouldering. Um, and we went to this bouldering gym, and it's kind of a social thing. So we're talking to this woman who's bouldering the same climbs we are, and she had graduated from MIT with a degree in aerospace engineering in 2020.
Hmm.
So she was like more than a calendar year out of graduating from MIT. And she was like, what nobody told me is aerospace engineering is really like a catch-all degree. And so when I got hired, they had to train me for what I was actually going to do.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh, that's not good. Because if you're going to go to MIT, you would expect to know the skills you're going to need for the job you're going to do. And that was not the case. So I would say that when it comes to engineering degrees, computer science degrees, what the coursework requires of you and what you'll end up doing, even in the field, could be significantly different. There could be a large amount of variance because those fields are so vast. And she was not dissatisfied with her degree, but she wasn't using it, even though she was technically in that field.
Okay.
So that's
Because I've heard of a lot of STEM majors who, because when you're going through college, like math and science concepts are done like out on paper, and then when you go to like in the field, it's like with a lot of assistance from software.
right.
So I've heard that makes a big difference in like your work day and compared to your coursework in school.
Yeah, I would imagine it does. I think that, and this is total speculation on my part because I'm not an engineer, but I would think that in the coursework, they want you to prove that you can do the math and science concepts on paper so that when you're in the field, if the software fails, you still have a clue what you're doing. That would be my guess, but that's just total speculation because I'm not in that world at all.
Well, that sounds right to me because when I was at Monco before I transferred over, my academic advisor, because I have to take a class that they just called aesthetic sensibility, which was like painting, pottery, dance, if it was in person, or drawing. And he said, I suggest you do drawing because if you're ever, actually engineering someday and you draw something on a computer and your computer fails or whatever, and your client wants, drawing specs of whatever you're engineering for them, it's helpful to be able to draw it out at least somewhat on just to have something on paper.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And yeah, I mean, I certainly wish I was a better drawer, just because I think it's a cool skill to have. But it didn't happen that way.
Yeah, well, this is more like mechanical drawing, like blueprints, than it is like something that's like you could hang in a museum. But
yeah, but I can't draw anything, blueprints or not. It's not. It doesn't end well. That's why I had you guys draw so often.
Yes, that was the best.
Do you have any other questions, pal?
I feel like going off what you said briefly, that I guess it really depends. Like the difficulty level really depends on what it is. but I feel like a lot of the time the build up to the actual job is harder.
I don't know. I would imagine it's different from field to field.
Right.
I mean, I have some friends with chemistry degrees, and I think like I have a friend who has a master's in chemistry, which is really hard to get. And he works at a pharmaceutical company, and like his job is like he's the lead of a team that puts together proposals for investigating a new drug. So like they isolate like a protein or something like that from a plant, and they're like, if you give us, X amount of dollars in the next 6 months, we'll exhaust all our resources and find out if this protein can do what we think it needs to do to make this happen when somebody swallows it. Well, obviously he was not doing that when he's getting a master's in chemistry. He was finding a new concept in chemistry and then doing the research and proving or disproving the concept. So to some extent that carries over, but it's not the actual coursework that he did, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then there's people who are just academics, like lifelong academics. My wife just finished up a master's in history she was in a fellowship that could have become a PhD, and she just felt like it wasn't like impactful enough in the real world, like she's writing 70 pages about how perpetrators of genocide are portrayed in genocide publications. And like doing that research is fulfilling to her, but what impact does that have on preventing genocide? Well, limited at best. It helps scholars understand how we perceive perpetrators, but that doesn't get her closer to genocide prevention 5 years from now. And so she's kind of like in flux, because when you're in that academic world, like humanities academic world, that's all you're doing. You're just reading and writing. If she goes more of a political science PhD, then she could potentially end up in like a think tank that could have long lasting impact on genocide prevention. So that would be, something she's more interested in. But you don't get to find that out until you go and actually do the master's work. And then you're like, yeah, this isn't really for me. Or yeah, I really love this. I could do this the rest of my life.
Is your wife a teacher or?
Well, she was a fellow at Lehigh, which means like she's like a paid researcher. So they paid her money to research this topic, and at the end of it, there's a master's degree. Or if she kept with it, there would have been a PhD. And then once she had a PhD, or even now, she could be a college professor in history programs. Her other master's is in Holocaust and Genocide Studies, which is more of a political science degree. It's like a history / political science / philosophy / psychology. It's like a multifaceted degree. But once you're on the PhD track for history, you usually end up just being a history professor and doing research when you're not teaching coursework. In political science, if you have a PhD, that's when you can end up in like a think tank.
Okay.
That
I know a lot of people who do have a political science degree. Also it's a good way to set you on track for law school.
Well, I'm talking about a political science PhD.
Okay.
Yeah, not an undergraduate degree, a PhD.
Okay.
But yeah, political science is definitely, as an undergraduate degree, is definitely a pathway to law school, for sure.
Do you think your wife would ever run for elected office if she has a PhD in political science?
No, because her goal is to prevent genocide.
Well, I mean, that could help, though, if you're like an elected official.
You sure?
I mean, through the
Consider what we're talking about. Me being married to someone who's considering getting a PhD in political science, and you, who I'm pretty sure has not considered this at all.
Well, I mean, like if you were an elected official, like you could like through diplomacy, like prevent humanitarian things from happening.
Can you name an elected official who's done that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe like, on a federal level, the Secretary of State, but like not anyone specifically, like right now.
Right. So, like, if your question is, does my wife want to be the Secretary of State? The answer is still no.
Well, I mean, any kind of elected office, I guess, could work. You could work your way up, but
I think you have a very optimistic view of where the ceiling is on someone's ability to climb.
Why do you say that?
Well, how many elected officials do you think have PhDs in political science?
I don't know. Probably not many.
I think 0.
Okay.
Because if you pursue a terminal degree like that, that becomes your life. You can't also be the person who's like schmoozing and going to $5,000 dinners to meet the people you need to meet to end up in one of those positions. Like, it's like your view, like when I say optimistic, it's like you feel like they're actually picking the best people for the job based on merit and education. And I don't think that's what's happening. And I mean, when you look at recent federal elections going, and when I say recent, I mean, I don't mean the last like 2 election cycles. I mean, go back in my lifetime, 40 years of elections. Do you really feel like we're selecting do you think the talent pool is based on merit and education?
I guess not.
To want to be in those positions, you have to have an amazing amount of hubris and self-interest. And people who want to prevent genocide very rarely have their own interests at heart, because you have to be willing to wade through thousands of hours of reading about genocide, which is not good for anyone to do.
This is true.
Okay.
Does that track?
Somewhat. So like, what were you saying about like picking them based on like merit and education?
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of elected officials do have, I mean, I'm not saying all, but a lot of them do have, somewhat advanced degrees from like Ivy League schools and whatnot.
Well, they're usually lawyers.
Okay.
They don't have PhDs.
Okay.
Law degrees are, when I think of elected officials with advanced degrees, it's usually a law degree. I'm trying to think. I don't think Trump had an advanced degree. Biden doesn't have an advanced degree. I don't think he does, because he went into politics so young.
I think he went to law school though, because he studied political science at the University of Delaware and then got his law degree at Syracuse.
So lawyer, Obama lawyer, Bush not lawyer. I don't know what Bush is. Maybe he's got a master's in something. I'm looking at Biden's Wikipedia right now to see if it will say right on the top. Education. Yeah, he's got a JD from Syracuse, like you said. And then Obama was definitely a lawyer. Bush too. Let's take a look. And I'm not like saying like a law degree is not an impressive thing to have. Bush has an MBA, so a business degree from Harvard. I would imagine Bush 1 had something similar. Clinton was a lawyer.
Hmm.
Reagan,
He was just an actor, was he not?
yeah, he was definitely an active actor, but he could have furthered his education.
Hmm.
But you're not seeing, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're not seeing somebody with a PhD, because to get a PhD is so exhaustive.
Hmm.
Like, you have to give up so much of your life to get it. And then if the content is grim, that's just not indicative of having the self-interest you need to become an elected official.
So you're saying like most or like all elected officials have like an inherent self-interest? Like,
Yeah, I think that's implied.
I guess, although they do like when they refer to their career, they do call it like public service. So,
Well, public in the sense that they're serving the public, not public, like, well, yeah, because they're not in private service to corporations. Although if you
well,
look
yeah,
at
but I
the
mean,
track
like,
record, find one that you didn't feel like serviced corporations as much as they serviced the public.
I mean, yeah, but if they do it, I mean, they do have self-interest, but like they also put a lot of their energy into like, doing things for the betterment of the state of whatever country they're governing.
Yeah, just tell me a couple who've done that. I'd love to hear a few. This is again where
Well,
I'm saying you're looking at it very optimistically.
I mean, I guess, but like right now they're trying to pass like an infrastructure package that they're saying will help create, um, union like good paying union jobs
Sure.
for unionized employees.
Yeah, they're saying it. Again, I'm not scolding you for being optimistic. I'm just pointing out your optimism, and you're
Yeah.
just giving me examples of your optimism.
They do
I mean, I
say a
guess,
lot
but
of
it did pass
things.
through the Senate. It just has to pass through the House of Representatives now and be signed by the president.
But again, you're taking what the highlights are.
Mhm.
Unless you've read it, did you read it?
The
Did you
entire
read,
like
yeah,
the
did
bill?
you read the bill?
No.
Okay. So you're taking the highlights of it that they're publicizing
Okay.
and saying, I believe this on face value. This will help people. And I'm saying, I'm skeptical due to a track record of forever of politicians not always, having the common person's best interest in mind.
Valid.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when you look at, because it's Biden's bill, when you
Mhm.
look at it, his track record, he
Mhm.
certainly has done some things to help common people,
Mhm.
but he's also done things that I think we would all agree were much more advantageous for massive corporations.
Mhm.
And so why would I expect him to be different? And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, it is.
Mhm.
And so if that's what it is, I don't expect this one to be different.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You expect them because they're the whole point. And I'm not saying this is what happens, but the whole point of their job is to like make positive change, and they're supposed to like kind of put self-interest aside and like better things collectively, but they don't.
Oh, Connor.
He's so up. The optimism is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
this
I
makes me
mean,
feel like you should run for public office.
like
He
they
would
put a lot of
last.
hours into like, writing and like authoring and co-sponsoring different things that they say are going to help people and change things.
I mean, do you think Biden actually wrote a single word of that bill?
Well, he's the president, so he's not writing it, but like,
Okay.
you know what I'm trying to say, like, Congress people.
Yeah, I think sometimes a politician will go in with a positive, altruistic mindset.
Uh-huh.
And then they come to realize that it's what they want to do in
Hmm.
terms of public good is much harder to do than they realized.
Okay.
And what it takes is money.
Hmm.
And that companies will always have more money than people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that to get what they want done, they have to be willing to bend on some things that they know are not necessarily for the good of people, but are only for the good of companies.
That makes sense.
And that's, when you look at someone, and I know that, politically, he's definitely exploded in your lifetime. When you look at someone like Bernie, he seems to have managed to avoid that for the most part.
Uh-huh.
And he still ended up a millionaire.
Yeah. I don't know. And you're right. I guess I just don't want to assume that they all have these. I don't even know if it's underhanded, but like this agenda. Because I mean, you think you'd hope at least that they're committing themselves to working to do things that help you, but
I think it's good to be optimistic. I
uh-huh.
think you want to exercise, and I would advise you to not assume, but to be skeptical.
Okay.
And just ask, okay, Biden's infrastructure bill is trillions of dollars. It certainly has some highlights that sound like they're going to be very helpful to common people.
And I guess like I'll go back to what you said about your wife, like preventing genocide.
Yeah.
Like you said, like she's writing research on or performing research on.
She has written.
Okay.
that.
So I guess what I was assuming was, and I'm not saying your wife would have to run for president, but like how there are like federal representatives are like by district.
Yeah.
If she ran as like a local representative, like I don't know, I was just thinking that maybe that would be a good position to speak on to like a federal government officials.
Yeah. But this is where our experience levels in the topic, I think, and this is what I tried to say 20 minutes ago. Like, this is something I know a lot about, and it's a thought you're having for the first time in your life. Okay. So, like, imagine an elected official from Hatfield, PA, running on genocide prevention.
Mm-hmm.
No one cares in Hatfield, PA. They care about school taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They care about, the red light on Cowpath Road, because those are the issues that impact their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to make an impact in that world, being an elected official doesn't do you much good, because elected officials don't have time to educate themselves on those issues. If you work for a think tank that might be federally funded, and you become the person who high-level elected officials turn to when they're like, look, this situation in X country is looking really grim. What should we do? And your think tank is the one that influences that. Well, then you can have a positive impact. But the elected official's never the one that has all that knowledge, because then they'd have to have so much knowledge about so many different issues. How could they possibly juggle all that?
Yeah. That's making sense now. Okay.
Like, you could be an elected official at the federal level who really has a soft spot for preventing genocide.
Okay.
But it would be very rare that you would actually run on that, because there are some folks who feel like genocide is happening here, but there's not what scholars would call an active genocide happening here. And so why would that be the crux of your campaign? You run, you get elected, and then you have this opportunity to prevent a genocide, and you have a soft spot for it, in the same way that some elected officials have a soft spot for unions, or some elected officials have a soft spot for guns, or whatever, and then you can influence policy. But even then, you're taking the advice from people who are studying it on the ground.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, now it does.
I love that you're as optimistic as you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to. It's not. That's not a bad thing.
No, I'm saying I genuinely love that you're that.
I mean, is that like a naive thing to feel, like optimistic about their job?
Well, I think your view of what the job is accurate. I think you're being presumptive that the people running for office share your view of what the job is.
Okay.
And that's where the optimism is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you looked at every elected official with some amount of skepticism,
Mm-hmm.
you might be less optimistic, but have a clearer idea of how they interpret the job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and look, if I ran for elected office, I think you guys would be like, Mr. Smith, he's a good guy. He was my teacher. He cares about people. But you should still exercise skepticism as to what my motivation is.
Mm-hmm.
And that skepticism can't end because you know me, because we have positive interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do something that you're kind of like, well, that was weird, but I'll trust him, I would say you should say that was weird, but we need to figure out why he did that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got kids out on this side of the building, which I don't know. Looks like little kids. They must be picking up Chromebooks or something.
Huh.
Huh. But yeah, just ask why.
Skepticism is always healthy in any way.
Yeah.
Not
makes sense.
cynicism, though. I'm not advocating for cynicism.
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying go in and expect every elected official to be trash. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that.
Right.
I'm saying,
Just a lot of them.
well, I mean, I think it lends itself to that.
Uh,
And I don't even know if trash is the right word for a lot of them. I think it's just our very optimistic concept of what the job is supposed to be and what the job ends up being are different things.
Yeah. I think that's accurate.
Connor, bring in the heat with the questions.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't want to feel like I don't want you to feel like I'm arguing with you either. I'm just trying to like.
That's what
This
we're
is
gonna
good.
debate.
This is good.
You know.
This is good content.
Yeah, I agree.
We're not arguing. If you want, we can
Yeah.
argue if you want. I'd rather not.
No. It's just like
No.
I don't know.
I'm
just-
glad you're asking. I'm glad you're pushing back.
Yes.
Like you said, I was just optimistic about it. And I guess when you brought up your wife wanting to prevent genocide, the first thing I thought was be in a position of power or authority.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what better way to do that than be an elected official? And then
Right.
you kind of
And that's where I asked, can you name an elected official that's actively
yeah.
tried to prevent genocide? And you can't.
Yeah.
That's not what they do. There's plenty of spots in the world right now where if they wanted to prevent genocide, we'd be there, and we're not.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty unfortunate though, because they all have like obviously have a positive platform they run on, like, oh, I'm gonna make healthcare affordable, or this and that, or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And they never end up really doing it.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you look at it and what your values are. Like, if you're looking for socialized healthcare, you could say that we've become closer in your lifetime than we've ever been. If you're looking for choice in healthcare and not socialized healthcare, because there are people who don't want there to be socialized healthcare, they probably feel like they've taken a loss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, changes happen. They just happen slowly or
Yeah.
really fast. I mean, certainly when I was in 11th grade, like you were, when we met, I could never have imagined my gay friends being able to get married.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seemed impossible to them, and it seemed impossible to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just like, unfortunately, the country just doesn't recognize you that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's totally possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that just seemed to happen like in the blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because I know you also mentioned like when someone like tries to put themselves in a position of authority through an election and they run, like you said, you have to question what their motivation is.
Yeah.
And like right off the bat, I guess because you're like, you're older and you said you have more skepticism than I guess I do or we do. Like if I was looking at it and I'd think what their motivation is and they'd say like, oh, here's my platform, this is what I'm gonna do. I think,
Yeah.
well, okay, well, I guess that's their motivation.
wow.
They want to do these things they're promising to do, and that's their motivation to be an elected official. And
Well,
then
I
you
think
kind of
the
help
question,
expanded my view. Yeah.
when someone expresses what their goals are,
Okay.
I think you have to ask, okay, especially if whether or not you share the goal. So, pick a political issue. Let's try not to pick something too, we can go guns. I feel like that's a fair, not instantly get me fired type of discussion. So there are people who want access to all the guns, right? There are people who want no one to have access to guns. Like those are the poles, right? There are people who want to be able to buy, a Black Hawk helicopter.
The two extremes.
Yeah, those are the two extremes. Those are like the polemic issue has poles. So like those are the north and south of it. So when an elected official is running and they say, I'm for gun control, I think you ask yourself two questions. One, why? And two, how? And when somebody says, I'm for the Second Amendment, you ask why and how. But you always ask those questions. You don't just say, oh, well, this person's really into letting people buy guns or not letting people, like, them stating their side of the issue is not how they're going to do it. And it's not the why they're going to do it. Like, why are you going to enforce stricter gun control? And then you'll get surface level answers because too many people in our country die from gun violence. Okay, well, obviously that's true. I think it's like every 9 seconds somebody in America gets shot with a gun. How many of the people doing the shooting are actively breaking the law just having that gun? And what good would more laws do if somebody's already a criminal? Like, those are the questions you have to ask. On the other side, if somebody says, I think that there should be, no level of enforcement against the Second Amendment. Like, people should be able to buy what they want to buy and produce what they want to produce. But you say why, and then what will society look like if Pennsylvania is an open carry state? Like, you can walk around with a loaded gun on your hip in Pennsylvania. Most people in our area do not do that. Private institutions like the mall or a bank will not allow that to happen because they own the land on which that person's trying to do it. But when somebody says they want that, you have to ask, well, to what end do you want that? Why do you want that? And if they say, because I think society is safer when law-abiding citizens are armed, then I think you need to drill down into that. In the same way you drill down into the person that says there's too many deaths from gun violence. But you need to drill down into both, and then that's when you can start to decide how you feel about the issue. Does that track?
Yeah.
But when somebody's just like, gun control or Second Amendment, I would be hesitant to just accept that on the face value and be like, oh, this is somebody that's going to, make it so there's less deaths by gun violence.
Yeah, but a lot of people do that though.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of politicians want people to just accept it on face value, so they don't have to answer hard questions.
This is true.
Like, when you go to a politician's website, sometimes you can find the actual plan of how they will do what they're saying they're going to do. That's what you want. And then once you have the plan, you again exercise skepticism. How possible is this? Like, is this even reasonable? Like, here's their plan. What it's going to take is for 10 senators from states who feel the exact opposite of this to agree with them to make this happen. Well, if it's not even possible, it could be a great plan. But what can you do? If you support that candidate, maybe you go to that state and you try to talk to those people and convince them of your point of view. But you can see how long that would take. And I think people elect a president or even a governor and think changes are just going to start swinging around instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely is that the case.
It's a good example. Let me check something.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just thinking about
Yeah, yeah.
things now.
All right.
I guess because like, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say, Elliot?
I was gonna say we could wind it down if we like. We've been going for
Okay.
a while. But did you have something to say?
I mean, no. It's like, if you want to end it, like it's been like what, an hour and a half. You can do that, but
You can finish up your thoughts.
I guess just like what you said earlier about the optimism again.
Yeah.
Because you said you expect like you elect somebody and changes just start happening.
I don't
'Cause I don't
expect
know if
that, but the general populace seems to expect
yeah.
that.
Like, cause you see too, like they publicize themselves, like maybe in like the General Assembly, like in person, arguing back and forth with each other, and you see that publicized, and you think like, oh wow, they're arguing back and forth with each other, and this is going to go on all day. They must be working really hard to get something done, and then you don't see that they take a 15-minute recess every hour and whatnot like that. So
Yeah.
I guess they have a good way at making themselves look really good.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's the
part
job.
of the job. Yeah.
And I guess part of my optimism is that I was kind of, I guess I could say I was duped by their facade of niceness.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Because
that's the
they
lack
do
of
promise all kinds of good stuff. What were you gonna say?
I think that's just the lack of the lack of skepticism, where you're like, they're saying they're working really hard, and I'm sure they must be, because look how passionate they seem. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting cynicism, but I think that asking how and why when a politician says that, or anybody really, your boss, your boss is like, oh, we're going to start this new initiative and everybody's going to have a chance to make more money. You want to ask how and why? Or am I going to make more money because you're going to pay me a quarter more an hour? Or am I going to make more money because you're going to make me work 45 hours a week? I'm making more money both ways, but one I'm not really looking for. Asking how and why are just really important questions. And sometimes I think you end up dissatisfied with the answers if you go in thinking that everyone has as a clear positive motivation as you seem to have.
Okay.
Like if you got a text from your boss, you're working at the bagel place, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, I'm going to have an opportunity for you to make an extra $100 next week.
Okay.
Would you instantly be like, sounds good, I can't wait? Or would you say, how exactly am I going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people are just more naturally skeptical, but from birth, I would have been like, well, how am I going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the answer is, well, you know how you thought you had off Thursday, you're actually working 10 hours. Well, I don't want that. And if the answer is, we're upping your pay $5 an hour, well, then absolutely, that sounds great to me. And then, that would be the how. And then the why is like, well, why don't I have my day off anymore? Well, so-and-so has, to go to a funeral for the grandmother. And then you might say, you know what? Well, then I want to help that person out. And so I'll give up my day off. But if the answer is, I decided to just slum it and I need you to cover for me, well, that's no. I don't want the extra $100 if that's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of track on like a real life level?
Yes.
Yeah.
The how and why.
Yeah.
Always keep it in mind.
Do you think your skepticism comes more with age?
No.
Or no?
No, I'm probably
Okay.
less skeptical now. I mean, I don't know. I was definitely, I mean, I grew up on like punk rock. Like, it's innately skeptical. And like, I think I'm more open-minded now and more likely to give people a chance than I was when I was like 15. You know, like at that point, I don't think you could have convinced me that there was a good politician when I was 15.
Right.
Okay.
I would have just, I think I was probably more cynical then.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all in it for the money type of deal. And
That's
now,
not how I'm coming off, is it?
what's that?
That's not how I'm coming off to
You're
you, is
coming
it?
off the opposite, man.
Okay.
You're
Well, I
coming
was gonna
off
say,
as
like,
none of them are in it for the money. They don't have self-interest at heart. They're just trying to make the country a better place. And for some reason, it hasn't happened over the last 250 years.
If only that were true.
No, your cynicism is the opposite of a positive outlook. I think
Okay.
at 15, I was cynical. And probably by like 25, my cynicism kind of matured into a healthy skepticism. But I definitely lean more to skepticism than I do accept anything on face value.
Okay.
Like I would never accept anything on face value. And I don't think anyone should. But I'm also never going to write an idea off if I haven't explored it.
Okay.
Like I think all ideas, all claims need to be evaluated. Even if they seem ridiculous.
Okay.
You need to evaluate it. When I need to evaluate it the most is when it's something I agree with. Like something I disagree with, of course I'm going to evaluate it. But when I agree with something, that's when I need to be the most skeptical. Am I agreeing with this because it aligns with my values and I'm not willing to explore it beyond that? Because I'm like, hey, I agree with that. That's called confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
And I want to
I've
avoid
heard of
that
before.
at all costs. I want to know that if it's a political official or an idea a friend has or an idea for an investment or whatever, I want to know that I want it for the right reasons and not just because they're saying things I agree with. Because it's really easy to say things people agree with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Does that wrap it up?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Thanks for coming on, Mr. Smith. It's been quite fun. And
Glad to hear it. It was fun. It was fun for me as well.
got some good topics in there.
Yeah, I think we did.
Overall, a success. All right. So for listeners, this will be also on YouTube because all of our cameras are on and everything. But yeah, there'll be Spotify version, YouTube version, like audio and video. Just whatever.
Mr. Smith, do you not want to be on YouTube?
We should probably wrap up the episode and then talk about how people can consume it.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Anyways.
Or maybe mention that before we do it.
Yes. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, it's been fun. Hopefully we'll have Mr. Smith on again. All right.